Welcome to the Tech Club this morning. I am Mish, and Jason here is with me.
Morning.
And today is Sunday. It is actually light out. Light is getting earlier and earlier.
Memorial Day weekend.
Yes. And
hope everybody's having a good weekend. Unless you're in the Northeast, where it's been snowy, I guess.
Or San Antonio, where you're swimming.
Exactly.
We are the Stone Mountain Consultants. We are going to be going over some tech news, a couple items, and also going over our main topic, which is disaster recovery. How to recover from it and how to plan for it.
Not necessarily in that order.
Yes. If you want to give us a call, you can call us in the bottom half of the hour. We'll give the number out at the time period. But if you want to give us an email, or if you want to check out our website, you want to go to smc.io, or Stone Mountain Consultants, and it's .io means it's a funny word on input output. And our email address is help@smc.io. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, and we can help you.
Facebook, YouTube, and all that stuff.
Facebook, yep, we're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on YouTube. At the end of the show, once we edit it down, so we put it up correctly without any DMCA violations. We put it up on our YouTube channel so people can watch it there, and should be good to go. I guess before this first break, we can start with some news items, unless there's any other housekeeping you want to do.
No.
The first one is during the week the Xbox One was announced, and which is the new Xbox 360, gaming console. From a top down, when you just take a glance at it, it looks like, oh, it's nice. But when you start to dig into it, it's actually very authoritarian in a way they do things. They had to actually release another clarification about trading games, because the way they were making the new Xbox One games in the console is that you buy one copy, and that's yours for life. You cannot trade it in. You cannot give it to a friend. Say you don't like the game and wipe it off your hard drive and whatnot, and you give it to somebody, won't work. It only works on one Xbox. So basically, I heard one guy say basically they've changed the Xbox into basically PC, because that's how PC gaming is. You want to get your game, you install it, you have an activation key, and there you go. You can't transfer it to anybody else. Of course, there's other things you can do with it. So it's very, as I think. Well, that's our break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Tech Club this beautiful Sunday morning. This is Memorial Day. Just continuing on the news. I'll just continue on the same article I was talking about with the Xbox One. Basically, what they're going to do is they had to clarify that you can actually start trading games, but you're going to have to pay a fee. And plus, all the old Xbox 360 games will not work on the Xbox One. So it means that you can't, if you buy when the PS3 came out, you could play your PS2 games on it, and it would work. Of course, the new version of the PS2 3 doesn't do that. But when PS3 first came out, the first version was called the Fat Boy version. It's a big version. When the Slim came out, you can do that. But it was basically allow you to play your old games. Actually, a lot better too because it's faster and whatnot. But they did not make it backwards compatible, which is kind of poo-poo. Right. And it comes with, of course, the Xbox Connect, which, and it's basically a glorified PC. That's all it is. It's got 8 cores. It's got a lot of power, but the way that they're doing a lot of things, it's all about the TV and what it can do, because it's supposed to like we talked about. I think it was something else where there's actually an app that runs onto the right and actually gives you more information. You can put Twitter and all that kind of stuff. So as you're watching TV, you have all this stuff, which is nice, but it's not a gaming console thing.
Right. I think the ability to share games.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that's a huge market.
Yep. Like if the article basically ended, is that no matter how the final system works, it's not likely to please GameStop, the world's biggest buyer and seller of used video games. But it could be tantalizing way to share games with your friends in a virtual space. So you would be able to share like to your friends, and they'd have to pay stuff. But say you wanted to give them your copy, you couldn't give it. Or if you wanted to make some money, because say you bought all these 30,000 games, and you're getting rid of it, couldn't make any money off of it. Which, I mean, GameStop, although they give you not much money for it, they do give you some, so you can actually get something. But yeah, But continuing on, Microsoft's bad days for them doing bad things to you, I guess you could say. Microsoft is reading Skype messages. So basically, the way that Skype is supposed to be encrypted so that your communication, so no eavesdropping between your video, voice, or instant messaging, no eavesdropping by malicious users. But Microsoft can see all what you write in and whatnot. If they can see that, that means that it's not truly encrypted. It means that they can then say, "Oh, you're talking about this," and do things like say, "Oh, he's talking about bombing something or whatever," and they could use that against you, even though you think it's an encrypted communications. So you want to be careful what you say on any electronic device, Skype or anything. But yeah, Microsoft.
And then Apple is rumored in their newest upgrade to iOS, which is their operating system for iPads and iPhones and iPods, to go back to basically a flat version of that.
Which means that instead of it's nice little three-dimensional app-looking things, it's gonna look much more like, I guess, actually much more like Windows Phone, which is basically just boxes and.
The gentleman that took over the design of this was never a fan of those 3D-ish type design. So apparently his, Steve Jobs is no longer there.
Yeah.
This will have taken over. They are expected to unveil it at the WWDC in 2013.
Yes, which I think it's August or September. I can't remember.
I'm not sure. Afraid to click on the link and lose the internet.
But so I think that's a good idea, because the more simplistic the view is, the easier it is to use a thing. I mean, when you look at the difference between like a iPad versus a Kindle Fire, Kindle, with the e-ink or whatever it's called, it's so much easier to read and look at it in that black and white contrast than it is to have those colors and that the glossiness. It just easier, less complexity makes better. Plus, you can see it at a glance. J-Lo's new gig for Verizon retailer. Apparently, J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez, is going to be just signed to be chief creative mind for a brand new line for Verizon retail stores, specifically geared to the Latino population. And so that should be awesome. Of course, they do use a lot of... I have noticed that the Latino population is on their phone constantly, but not usually using apps and whatnot, just calling people. Because at least where we were in Connecticut, everybody was just talking to everybody else, which is cool. That's what the cell phone's meant for.
All right, so our topic for this week is how to prepare and survive, at least your technology-wise, a disaster and how to recover from it. Mm-hmm. With all of the recent disasters in the area, especially if you own a small business,
yes,
you want to, if you haven't already, and I know we talked about this a few weeks ago, maybe.
Yeah, when we're talking about backup.
Especially if you have a business, you want to prepare for this. Because if something were to happen to your business, if you've lost your data, even if it's just your financial data, a lot of businesses will close up shop because there's no way
to know if they have money or not money or where money is going.
Right. Can't pay vendors, can't pay employees,
Can't
receive money in.
Exactly.
You may be able to do the services rendered, but you may not be able to receive money in.
Correct.
So one of the first things you're going to want to do is prepare something that we call basically it's a disaster recovery plan.
Yeah.
It's a plan that you have to enact in the event of a disaster. And disaster doesn't have to be something major like a major tornado or an asteroid hitting your neighborhood. It could be something as simple as
power going out.
Pole gets knocked down on your street, and for some reason the power isn't restored until 2 days after that.
Or even just internet's down for a couple of days, or they're doing something, or even flash flooding. It's raining a lot, and
it's right. It can be something very localized.
Yeah.
It's just basically something that is going to keep you from doing your normal day in, day out business.
Yes.
Now, we're going to refer to businesses here, but even if you're a homeowner and you've got a lot of important data on your computer, you'll want to consider some sort of backup as well.
Mm-hmm.
But, so the disaster really could be anything. So you got to really sit down basically with a sheet of paper in front of you, or a computer. And what you want to do is you want to figure out what is needed to run your business.
Bare necessity, skeleton crew kind of thing.
Right. What it takes to run your business. Now, this can be as something, and you're going to go over everything from the telephones, from the internet. If you receive payments through credit cards, payment process. If you've got employees, how will your employees get to your site, to your place of business? And you got to even sometimes think about your employees as well. If your employees, you may be fine, but what if your employees couldn't get to work? Your business is okay, but between you and your employees, they can't get to it. Think of that. Think of your data. Where does your data lie? Think of cell phones, if you operate off of cell phones. So you want to create a list of what is needed to actually run your business, and then when you have that list, you want to take that list and then basically divide it into, like we were saying, telephone,
expound on it into the different areas so that you can actually see what needs to be done and what you need to do to make this thing work.
Right. If the telephones were to go down, what would you do in its place?
Most people would probably say, "Oh, probably my cell phone." Well, what if your cell phones are down? And landlines, because that's the thing about during Superstorm Sandy, when we got hit in Connecticut, is that the power was out for a week, and the cell phone tower it only had power for I think a day or two, because once it ran out of LP gas, it was done. So you lost the internet. That's our break. We'll be right back.
And we're back here at the Tech Club, Sunday morning, 26th, Memorial Day weekend.
Yay! Which wasn't always, of course, everybody always does Memorial as military, which is fine and dandy. But it used to be actually a Memorial Day for anybody that had passed away. People would often take it to their parents or grandparents or any family members' grave, and they would honor them and bring them flowers or whatnot. So it's actually only recently, probably in the last 30 years, that it's specifically only military-ish. Well, at least people think of. Anyway,
there's your History of Memorial Day. Thanks to
my nerdiness.
Great. We're talking about disaster recovery here.
Mm-hmm.
Before the break, we were talking about one of the first things you're going to want to do is create some sort of list of what was required to run your business, from the telephone, from the internet, from the
power,
employees, the power, exactly.
Basically, what do you need to make your company or even your home? Because you could attribute this to your home. Say the poo-poo hits the fan, or something bad happens and you are out of power. Do you have a backup generator? Do you and do you have enough food? Do you have all the things? What do you need for your home to continue operating within some semblance of civilization? You're not going hunter-gatherer on it very quickly. That'll eventually happen, but do you have enough food? Do you have power? Do you have a communications ability? If you're talking about home, ham radios or something like that, you actually can talk to people and see, the end of the world occurred. Oh, cool. I made it through the end. So those kind of things, you can attribute all of this back to a home life or a home scenario. But going back to the business at home is also transportation, and also how do you get to your data? Say you're you backed up all your stuff and you're trying to get to your location to get your stuff, and you can't. Is there a way you can off-site, give your stuff to Aunt Martha, or have a remote data backup kind of place where you can just go online from a different location that may have power, internet, and all that, and you can actually get your data and work on it.
Right. That's one of the first things you're going to probably want to figure out is if you can't get your place of business for whatever reason, you have to create an alternative disaster site for both you and your employees. And it could be somebody's home, it could be another business. Obviously, we're not going to recommend a place of business that's on the same street as your business, because, again, if you can't get to your business, most likely they can't get to theirs.
Mm-hmm.
So you're probably going to want to choose something that's across town.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you can't get there, you're going to have to, if you have employees again, you're going to have one of your employees possibly open that alternative place of business. And again, by then you have already figured out your phone. You're not going to want to do this, of course, a few days before something may occur.
Yeah, because you won't be ready.
Right. You're going to want to do this even a few months or more before this happens.
You want this well-established, practiced, and ready to go, so that when the disaster does hit you, you are ready. I mean, it's no biggies.
Right, because if you think about it, you're in the middle of a disaster anyways. You don't want to think about doing all this stuff. You got other stuff to worry about, as well, your family and stuff like that, and friends and stuff like that. So having this all worked out and planned out, and place of doing it is to your advantage. Because if you think about it, what you're going to want to do is, if you have this all thought about, there's two advantages to this. One is you're going to have you're going to be more relaxed, knowing that you're ready for if something were to happen. And two, after the disaster were to occur, you would be up and running, while all the other businesses probably most likely are not. So you're going to be able to at least continue operation, pulling in funds and stuff like that, and helping out your neighborhood, while the others are still scrambling.
Yes.
So there's definitely an advantage to doing this.
Plus, yeah, I mean, specifically from public relations, which public relations was the new term to put on propaganda. But I'll digress there. It was an old book back in the 20s called Propaganda, and they actually, the guy who wrote it, basically outlined how you basically control people. Anyway, but public relations and the fact of how people see you. You would be seen as a, smart, on the ball, because you were ready, you were good to go. I mean, that's the thing that a fire department, they have procedures, if something bad happens, car accident, structure fire, brush fire, a cat in a tree, which does occur. But if they got up there, they can get back down. Just let you know. It's usually the owner that goes up there and gets stuck. They have procedures for all this, so that they are ready. So that's our break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Tech Club this beautiful Memorial Day weekend morning, Sunday. I'm talking about disaster recovery on, business or even home. And before the break, we were talking about how basically if you have a good disaster recovery plan, you're less time dealing with other things because everything else has been planned out. So say if you have to dig your car out, if you know that your business is not, up the creek as it was, you'll be able to do more things and actually think things through much more easier, and you can actually do things in a more brain fart there. Conducive for actually make good decisions. But one of the things also, when we talk about data recovery and all this kind of stuff, is you may even want to think of alternate machines. Say all your computers are at your location, but your location you can't get to. Do you have a backup computer or a backup something that you can actually use to do whatever you need to be done? That kind of stuff. Because sometimes if you can't get to your location, you can't get to your location. So you need to know, can I even get to my Word documents? They have a backup, but do I have a computer that I can actually access them from? And that's kind of like what Jason was saying is before, is that if you have there's another business nearby that you can maybe hop on or create like a relationship and actually do some things with them so that they can kind of work hand in hand.
Right. And then if that business is across town, which is again what it should be, that business can have a disaster recovery at your place.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to obviously be, if you have say a dry cleaners business.
And they're an accountant.
Well, that one may be a little more difficult.
Yeah.
Let's just say accountant. You're not going to choose another accountant across the way. It could be a dry cleaners.
Yeah.
So, of course, that may not be reciprocal to them.
Yeah. But yeah,
but the point is,
world's a tricky place.
You can have. I mean, you don't have to do this yourself. You can get other businesses in, like Chamber of Commerce, and maybe have a meeting set up where you all develop something.
Yep.
Because the way these disasters are going, it's going to happen.
Yes, and it seems to be happening more and more. I mean just with over the weekend, I mean, a lot of people in San Antonio are in disaster recovery mode. Actually, they're still in disaster mode. So these kind of things you think about, especially even if you're talking about at home, or even if you have a job somewhere, you need to have a disaster. How do you get to work if you can't get to work, kind of thing? Think about these things, and then you'll have an easier time dealing with things as they come. Because that's the problem with most people, is that when a disaster hits, they scramble, they don't know what to do. It's all these, it's up in the air. They make poor decisions.
Exactly.
If you know what you're doing, and that's the thing that McDonald's did to the nth degree, and this is what made them so not popular, so good at what they did. Granted, they don't have good food. I won't even consider it food, but it's stuff you cram in your mouth and it tastes good. They systematized everything to a point where, and don't take this the wrong way, a retarded monkey could do anything, and that's what they made it so easy, so simplistic that anybody that has base level intelligence, left, right, up, down, that kind of knowledge, can do this job. So that means that if something happens, there's no critical thinking has to be done, because they have done all the critical thinking for you, and you're not your job to critical think here.
Right. In this case, you've already thought this all out.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you don't have to go McDonald's route, but it's the idea that you actually are planning it out to the point where you don't have to worry about these things, because you will worry, and it will be a bad day.
Right, because it is your business. Without your business, you would assume you have no income coming in.
Yes.
Now, one of the other big steps you're going to want to do is, once you've got all of this laid out, you figured out this is what I'll do, this is what, how we'll perform, etc. You basically want to test it out.
Yeah.
Because you can have the plan in action. I'm sorry. You can have the plan written up, but how do you know
it's a good plan.
if it's a good plan, where are the weak points and stuff like that? So you're going to need to test it out, and you can do it in phases. You don't have to do the whole thing, go to the other place business. But, for example, your phones. If you developed what they call VoIP system, voice over IP, you can create a mock disaster and see if your phone will work.
You go over to the breaker box and say you want to do the no power. Yank the power and turn off all the breakers and go for it. and if, like just saying, the internet goes out or phone goes out, go to the breaker box and pull the plug. There you go. Now you have no internet. You have no connection. What do we do now? And then you just start going through, and you can even time yourself. And I mean, you can make a fun experience of it. Like, time yourself. How long does it take you to get up and running? I mean, it doesn't have to be like stress, but I mean, have some fun with it. I mean, get a couple of pizzas. Have your employees, because it could be a simple business of, you're a sandwich shop. You guys make a bunch of sandwiches. Of course, you're probably tired of sandwiches by now if you have a sandwich shop. But you can, once you practice the heck out of it, you're ready. I mean, that's the reason why people train. I mean, once you trained up in a certain skill, you're ready to do it all the time. So that's one thing about disaster recovery. People think that, you just need to have a plan, like Jason was saying. It's like you don't need to implement it, and basically you don't need to practice it. But that's the biggest thing, practicing it, because you don't know if the disaster is going to happen, when it is, and how kind of things might occur with the disaster. I mean, you might have two disasters going on. So if your business is set, but say your house is flooding and you're going to lose all your house. I mean, one disaster is taken care of, the other disaster you have to deal with, that kind of thing. So it makes life a lot easier, and who needs more stress these days, honestly? Sure. But one of the other things that for disaster recovery is, we talked about, like, you should tell your employees, you practice with them, but you should tell other people about it and get them on board, like Jason was talking about earlier. Is that because if you have a whole team efforts, if there's a really bad disaster, you create a nice rapport with your neighbors, it could be businesses or whatnot. I mean, one person may have water and you don't, but you have food. I'm going on more of a personal basis, but you have food, so you can actually pull resources and actually have, you have food, water, and trade those things so that you can actually, live and continue on life. Because not everybody can afford, especially these days, all the things necessary for disaster recovery from a personal aspect. But
we have to share costs.
Yes, because things are expensive. But one of the things also we talked about, like, the different, like, data and all this kind of stuff is, say you're unable, not all your people are unable to get into work. How do you report it to other people to let people know that you can't do it? You have to have, other than communication, is maybe Aunt Martha comes in and starts making sandwiches for you. Maybe you have some backup, even employees, if you're talking about business. There's a lot of, you could go to the nth degree with this, but it's one of those things about disaster recovery. It could go on, but the more clear, concise the list is, the more easier it is to deal with. Because, that's the idea of the disaster recovery, is to make things easy on you and your whoever to deal with things. The disaster. Because one of the things in the disaster recovery, from a business aspect, is the amount of time you're down. Jason was talking about, if you're up and running sooner than your competition, you're going to take, well, not steal, you're going to take their business because they're still scrambling trying to get up and running. That time amount, it can also, I was talking about in the fire service, fire department, medical, the amount of time can be somebody's life and somebody's not. So if you have a business that is a life-saving or whatnot, you need to have the disaster recovery just to make it as little amount of time as possible. Because I mean, if you're down for 2 seconds instead of if you're scrambling around for 2 hours, I mean, it's a lot of stress and a lot of things you could be doing at that time period. That's pretty much it for disaster. I mean, there's not too much else you can talk about.
We do have 2 links on our, by the way, I don't know if it was mentioned, on our website, which is smc.io, which conveniently stands for Stone Mountain Consultants.
Yes.
smc.io. If you click on the shows tab, and then you can click on the respective page for today's show, Tech Club, May 26th, of course. These are the show notes. We have this for all of our shows in the past. All the news articles we refer to. And in this case, we also have a couple links to
a couple different articles.
Articles on disaster recovery. One from FEMA.
Yeah, FEMA is always for you.
Right.
Yeah, FEMA is great. But like I guess one thing would be good to go over is that you should think of both different types of disasters. Natural disasters like, tornadoes, flash flooding, but also man-made ones like, 9/11 or a bombing or something like that. Because even a mass shooting, which may or may not have been implemented by the same government that's trying to stop it. I'm just saying.
Right, perfect example would be when Boston was shut down.
Yes.
For,
what was it, almost a week?
No, weekend.
Weekend, okay.
But it did consist of a weekday, Friday, into Saturday. People couldn't get to work.
Couldn't get to work. Couldn't. Actually, a lot of people couldn't even leave their homes because of the door-to-door ripping people out of their homes and yelling at them and telling them that they have done bad, even though they're like, I've been here all weekend.
Right.
So those kinds, knowing what kind of disaster you are dealing with might actually help you with your plan because, there are so many disasters out there. Not even just, under the natural and versus man-made, other than like power failure and nuclear radiation accidents, maybe near Fukushima, or hazard spills, fire, that kind of stuff, or civil unrest.
The other thing you're going to want to do is in testing your plan out. Probably one of the more important ones is your data.
Yep.
Which doesn't even require you to go to a different site. Once you're back up, we had talked about this in our backup show. Once you've got your backup established, after a couple weeks, you probably want to test that backup out and see if the data's there. We've had numerous occasions with customers where they thought their data was being backed up when in reality they were not.
Yes.
They were either backing up shortcuts to the real data, or it just wasn't being done, and they were faithfully replacing the tapes every weekend, etc., and stuff like that. So that's one thing you definitely want to test out.
Yes.
And you may not need all your data.
Yeah.
If the only data you really need is, say, your financial data, your QuickBooks, or if you run some sort of
proprietary system,
then you want that data. You may only need that data.
Exactly.
Which saves them backup and retrieval and stuff like that. And this will also help you in the event of a hard drive failure, too.
Mm-hmm. Would that be considered man-made?
I suppose. We had talked about that was the real reason for our backing up in our show was hard drive failure because they do fail.
Yeah. Not if, but when.
If your hard drive were to fail, again, you would have a backup already in place.
Mm-hmm. And if your hard drive is under 30 feet of water and it's all salty, you may want to go get a new one.
And get your data restored.
Yes. You can even plan out your, because we actually had this with a customer, that their data, they were right on the cusp of a changeover when they would actually do their backup, their hard drive had basically crashed. So they had two types of backup being done: a image backup and a data backup. The data backup happens almost every night, and the image backup happened every month because the image backup takes longer and does a lot more. The image backup basically is a copy of everything that's on the computer, all the software, everything. And what happened was that that's our break, so we'll be right back, and I'll continue my story.
Club here on Sunday morning. Mish, before the break, Mish was going over a story, a war story, as it were called. And then we're going to wrap things up here.
And bid you adieu until our next time. So, I was just going over basically this customer had basically hard drive one. And they had two different types of backups: image backup that's done on a monthly basis, and a daily data backup, which actually happens at night. The person actually, what we did was, since the hard drive crashed, we did the monthly restore, which gave them all their operating system, all their settings, everything, but their data was a month old. Then we restored the data backup from the previous night to make sure it was good to go, and then they were up and running quicker that way than it was if we had to rebuild this. Actually, it was a server. Rebuild the server and then just use the data backup from the previous night. So, depending on how you write your plans and how you think about it, you can actually get it to the point where you're not down for very long at all. Maybe a couple hours, maybe something like that. Because the more time you're down, the more you're out of business, as they would say. So little things like that little planning. See, if you plan it, it can be much better for you. So, before we go, Jaison, who are we?
Who are we? Well, we're the Stone Mountain Consultants. We consult. We, websites, email, disaster recovery.
This is true.
We do remote ins.
Fix people's problems.
Basically. So you can check out our website. All of our services are available on our website, as well as ways to contact us, like we were saying earlier, by Facebook, Twitter, basically all the social media stuff, Google+, YouTube. You can subscribe to our channel there, email, stuff like that. But again, our topic since was disaster recovery, again, what you want to do is sit down, spend a few minutes and sit down and figure out what is needed to run your business. And that's probably not a bad idea anyways. A lot of business owners don't actually know. They're just too involved with the day in, day out operations and not looking at the big picture, which is important.
One business owner should know the big picture.
So once you have all of that down, what is needed to run your business, then you can create some sort of recovery from if one of those functions failed. Remember, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So, if you have no phones, but you're in an area, well, what good is that? You can't get customers.
Exactly.
Or your phones are working, or you're at your new site, but you had forgotten about your credit card processing company. People aren't going to have cash, so most likely you're going to process credit cards. Now, if you've forgotten how to do that, back up. You can't process credit cards. You're up and running, but there's no way you can do credit cards. You're scrambling to do that.
So, that is it for us this week. Check us out next week. We're going to be talking about security and passwords. So, until then, have a good one. Stay dry. Bye.